seed, independence, and amp. The true meaning of survival. Sealing the future, securing tomorrow. When food disappears, you lose today. But when seeds disappear, you lose your future. This is the part no one talks about. The modern world told us a story. A convincing one. A comfortable one. A world where shelves are always full. Where trucks always arrive on time. Where systems never fail. And we believed it. We believed that food would always be available. That supply chains were unbreakable. That money could solve any shortage. But systems do not fail slowly. They collapse suddenly. One disruption, one delay, one break in the chain, and everything you trusted disappears. Shelves empty. Supplies vanish. Access is gone. And in that moment, most people realize something too late. They were never in control. Because what disappears first in a real crisis is not luxury. It is not comfort. It is not even food. It is the ability to produce food. Seeds disappear first. Quietly. Quickly. Completely. Because without seeds, there is no next season. No second chance. No recovery. Only dependence or collapse. Many people believe they are producing food. They go to a store, buy seedlings, plant them carefully in the soil, water them, protect them, and at the end of the season, they harvest something. It feels like production. It feels like independence. But it is not. Because the moment those seedlings are gone, their production ends. The cycle stops. And they return to the same place they started, dependence. This is the illusion of modern gardening. It looks like control, but it is actually controlled. Because the beginning of that system is not in your hands. It starts somewhere else. In a facility, in a supply chain, inside a system you do not own. And anything you do not control can be taken away. At any time. Without warning. True production does not begin with planting. It begins with ownership. Ownership of the source. The seed. Because a seed is not just the start of a plant. It is the start of a cycle. A system that can repeat itself. Again. And again. And again. If you cannot restart that cycle on your own, you are not producing. Real production survives disruption. Real production continues, even when everything else stops. Seed. Strength. Freedom. Breaking away from the system. A person who controls their own seeds cannot be controlled. Because they no longer depend on permission to eat. They are no longer waiting for a system to function. They are no longer vulnerable to empty shelves, delayed trucks, or broken supply chains. They operate outside of that system, and that changes everything. Because control over food is control over life. Every seed you save is a decision. A decision to step outside dependency. A decision to build something that continues without permission. Seeds are not just agricultural tools. They are living memory. Inside each one, there are thousands of years of adaptation, resilience, and survival. Droughts, floods, harsh winters, failed seasons, all of it. encoded into something small enough to fit in your hand. This is not just biology. This is continuity. And when you understand that, your perspective shifts completely. The system teaches you to consume, to buy, to replace, to depend. Nature teaches something else: to multiply, to regenerate, to continue. And these are not just different ideas. They are opposing directions. One leads to dependency. The other leads to autonomy. And once you begin saving your own seeds, you are no longer just growing plants. You are building a system that no external force can easily disrupt. You are creating stability in an unstable world. And that is why seed independence is not just a technique. It is a strategic advantage. Real survival. Most people misunderstand survival. They think survival is escape, running, hiding, stocking supplies for a few days, carrying enough food to last a week. But that is not survival. That is delay, a temporary buffer against an inevitable problem. Because no matter how much you store, eventually it runs out. And when it does, you are back where you started. Dependent. Waiting. Hoping the system returns. But real survival does not depend on the system recovering. Real survival continues even if the system never comes back. It is not about how long you can last. It is about whether you can continue. Because getting through today is not difficult. A little storage, a little planning, a little luck. But when days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, when there are no deliveries, no restocks, no external support, everything changes. At that point, there is only one question that matters. Can you keep producing? Not once, not temporarily, but continuously. Because survival is not a moment. It is a system that must function without interruption. And the foundation of that system is not food storage. It is production. And the foundation of production is seed continuity. Without it, everything else is temporary. With it, everything becomes sustainable. Heirloom, seeds and future security. Not all seeds are equal. Heirloom seeds are living history. They carry traits honed by generations: resilience to droughts, resistance to disease, adaptability to harsh climates. When you plant heirloom seeds, you are planting more than a crop. You are planting centuries of survival knowledge. Every season, by selecting the strongest, most resilient plants, you create a self-renewing cycle. A system that improves every year rather than degrading. This is why heirloom seeds are not just valuable, they are irreplaceable. Without them, your system is fragile. With them, your system is nearly invincible. They are your living legacy, your guarantee that your harvests and your independence continue long after you. Community impact: the seed. Sharing. Seed independence is not just personal. One person can feed themselves. A community can feed a village. When knowledge and seeds are shared responsibly, you create resilient networks. Networks that survive even the harshest crises. Think historically. Communities that exchanged seeds, that preserved biodiversity together, recovered from famine faster and stronger than isolated individuals. Seeds are currency in these networks. Not money, not gold, By saving and sharing seeds, you multiply security. You multiply abundance. You multiply life. This is why true seed independence extends beyond the garden. It builds communities. It protects futures. It turns survival into a legacy. Seed scarcity and system vulnerability. Imagine a real crisis. Shelves stay empty. Most people panic. They realize too late that survival is not about money. But there is something even more scarce than food: seeds. Without seeds, there is no next season, no recovery, no future. And the system knows this. This is why control over seeds is so sensitive. This is why central authorities, corporations, and governments regulate, restrict, and track certain seed types. Because when seeds disappear, so does independence. So does freedom. A single handful of kernels becomes more valuable than a ton of gold. The system can collapse. You can survive. The choice is yours. Wait for them, or secure your own future today. At the end of every season, the seeds you save are more than just plants. They are your freedom certificate, your guarantee that life continues, your proof that you are no longer dependent. Protecting them is not a hobby. It is protecting your family, your lineage, your community, generations yet to come. Every seed you select, save, and plant is a deliberate act of sovereignty, a refusal to be controlled, a declaration that your survival is not for sale. The system fears people like this, because a person who owns their own seeds cannot be bought, cannot be manipulated, cannot be controlled. That handful of kernels in your hand is more valuable than a ton of gold in the middle of a real crisis. Because gold does not grow, gold does not feed, gold does not reproduce. Seeds do. They sustain life. They build communities. They create security that lasts generations. If your seeds are not independent, your water system, your soil, your protein sources, all of it is fragile. But if your seeds are independent, everything else becomes unstoppable. History proves it. Communities that preserved their seeds survived the greatest catastrophes. They emerged stronger, wiser, more resilient. Now, you are part of that sacred chain, the chain of survival knowledge passed from hand to hand, from century to century. And at the end of each season, those small, resilient seeds are your certificate of freedom. Protecting them is protecting your future, protecting it forever. And the next step is equally critical: food storage. Because even the best production system is vulnerable if you cannot preserve it. We will cover that next. How to secure what you produce. How to ensure your system never fails. Strategy begins before crisis. Watch the full series on this channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next videos.